Hello, everybody. Welcome back to part 3 of Navigating Materialistic Minefields with myself, Viv Bartlett, and my father, Viv Bartlett. And we are continuing our journey through Viv's book, Navigating Materialistic Minefields. How are you doing today, Viv? How are you doing today, Dad? Are you well? How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, thanks, Cal. Yeah, as you know, I'm still handling post-cancer problems and so on, or an operation for that. But I think my 2 marbles are working now, so let's use them.
Let's make sure we don't drop them today, then.
Yeah.
So today we are going to continue with our discussion. Just to recap a little, in part 2, we took 2 sections from Viv's book and we looked at, is man's true nature animalistic? And the other topic was, if I can remember, what was the other topic? About human nature, I believe, right?
Yeah, whether human nature is just naturally aggressive all the time.
So if you guys haven't listened to that podcast, then head over and listen to that. We are going to continue and dive deeper into Viv's book today. Can you recap a little bit of what we did last time?
I hope so.
So we'll drop those marbles.
Yeah, we were into the first section on the book there, where we were looking at these materialistic assumptions, 6 of them. We had a look at 2 of them a little bit last time. And so, with regards to the way in which we function, many materialistic ways of thinking is that our brain does our thinking and we don't have a soul. So I introduced the reality that I believe we function through our soul, which has been created by God, and our body is like a mirror. And the mirror, because the brain is in the body as well, it has a very profound function in its connection between the soul and the body. So the soul itself has been described like the sun radiating its rays upon the body. And those rays, some of them are called the mind having this effect upon the body. And there's a back and forth between the body and the soul. But what we looked into was, it's not the brain that's doing the thinking, it's the soul that's doing the thinking through the mind emanating from the soul through the brain itself. Yeah, and that was the first one. And the second one is, we're not just advanced animals, just controlled by instinct and lower proclivities. We do have the soul itself is able to be nurtured with understandings and insights and influences of a spiritual nature to move towards our high nature, where all the virtues that are inherent within the soul can be brought out and polished, like love and justice and compassion and wisdom and so on. All these wonderful gems which can overcome the lower nature then, which is full of things like aggression, spitefulness, vengeance, cruelty, caprice, all the lower sort of nature characteristics. So we made the emphasis, looking through the lens of the teachings of Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha, that these lower characteristics can be overcome by the higher characteristics and kept in control, or sublimated or subordinated, I should say, to one's higher nature. And that way, we're not just left with a paralysis of will, because we're just focusing on something which is our lower nature. And as a result, then, we have something that can overcome through training, through education, through nurturing, through special caring environments to bring out all our spiritual qualities inherent in our soul.
That's interesting, the interconnectedness that we have between our body, our mind, and our soul. Let's move on to today's topics. So we're going to go further into Viv's book. Viv, can you highlight the title of the next section of the 8 chapters within the next part of the book? I believe there are 8 altogether.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. The next part is focused on navigating the materialistic minefield of existential questions to do with our existence.
Everybody would have these existential questions about life. Where are we from? Is there a God? What cheese do I buy in the supermarket? So yeah, and these chapters themselves really dive into those really cutting edge questions of what is the meaning of life, you know? We've chosen 2 topics to talk about within this section of Viv's book. The first one is free will, and the second one is, does God allow evil? So those are the 2 main chapters that we're going to look at today. Of course, there are more chapters. Unfortunately, we only have limited time. Otherwise, this podcast would be another 5-6 hours if we went through all the chapters. But we've chosen these 2 chapters to dive into and look into some more. Again, guys, if you want to purchase this book, Navigating Materialistic Minefields, you can head over to Amazon or George Ronald and pick up a copy and read the other chapters for yourself as well. So, free will. Do we have free will, Viv? Can I do whatever I want in society and have no ramifications or repercussions for my actions? Do we have free will? Can you talk more about that?
Well, I'm just thinking, Carl, it's great that you focused on 2 of the chapters within this section of the book. But I'm just wondering, can I speak a little bit about the first one in part 2, which is evidence of the human spirit and a spiritual world? Will that be okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah, because I was thinking that it's necessary to go into this a little bit because, because we have a soul, carrying on from last time, because we have a soul, it means that it's not going to die. It's not going to be uncreated. It's going to carry on. So I've written a chapter on what's the evidence for the continuity of the soul after the physical body dies in the spiritual world that we can enter when the body is disconnected from the soul. So this is a chapter focused on life after death, that we do carry on, and that we're in a totally different world to this world. And the difference can be as great as Baha'u'llah says, the difference between a child in the womb of its mother in comparison to this world, and this world is as different as that between this world and the next world, so that we will enter, the soul will enter when the body dies. So I'm looking to various things there to give evidence that we have a soul and it continues. And what I'd like to do is just read out one little story for this, because I go into several things, for instance, dreams where people become aware of insights into, you can get scientific discoveries and so on. There's a pool of creativity that we can call on from the dreams and so on. There's so many examples of entertainers and writers and scientists who have been triggered along a certain path because of their dreams.
Also as well, didn't Prophet Muhammad say that sleep is brother to death?
Yeah, that's a good one, Carl. That's a good one, because if he's saying that sleep is brother to death, and we understand we can experience sleep, then it's the same family as death. So we've had a little foretaste of it when we go to sleep. But this is a story, it's a premonition type story, but a little girl called Errol Mai Jones. And I want to say it because it's an interesting story in itself, but it gives an indication she's having, through her dream, a premonition of some future tragic event which actually happened. And so I've written in the book that Errol Mai Jones, she's a 10-year-old girl, and she attended a school called Pantglas Junior School in Aberfan. It's not too far away from where we live. And on October the 21st, 1966, a mountain of coal, slag and waste towering over the Welsh mining village was destabilized by recent rains, releasing a deadly flow of black coal sludge and rocks, which engulfed Pantglas Junior School, obliterating a cottage and 20 houses on its path of destruction. Actually, my father was one of the men. He told me about it when he came back. Actually, my father was one of the men at the scene shortly after as part of the BBC news crew covering the tragedy. He, along with scores of others, tried to rescue the children and adults, but to little avail. Little Errol was one among 116 children and 28 adults who were crushed or suffocated to death that day in what has been recognised as one of Britain's most horrific peacetime tragedies. Errol uncannily had told her mother days before the catastrophe that she was not afraid to die, and added, "I shall be with Peter and June." The day before this happened, Errol said to her mum, "Let me tell you about my dream last night." I dreamt I went to school and there was no school there. Something black had come down all over it. Well, it's such a tragic story. And Peter and June were Errol's school friends who also died, just being suffocated to death by the horrible coal sludge. And they're buried side by side in a mass grave as predicted in the dream. Now, the point I'd like to make is that Baha'u'llah gives indications of a world, proof of a world different from this world. And when he writes that when we dream something, and it comes true sometime later, 2 days, 2 years, 10 years later, whatever. If it becomes true, then it's an indication that we've entered a different world to this world when we've been asleep. Because if that dream world where we had the dream of the future was the same as this world when we're awake, then it would be natural for us to experience that future event at the time that we were dreaming it. But because there is a distance between the two occurrences there, Baha'u'llah says this is proof that we can enter a different world from this world, and it's proof to materialistic ways of thinking, and the proof is inside ourselves that our soul can exist in a different world after the body dies.
Fun fact as well, I also played a fireman as a TV extra in The Crown when they depicted the Aberfan tragedy as well.
Oh, yeah, I forgot you did that, yeah.
Just throw that in there as well.